Hi, and welcome to my podcast, 10,000 Hours and Counting, or Support for the Spiritual Journey. I'm Laura Geermans, and I'm a healer, a teacher, a speaker, and a writer. I have been on my spiritual path pretty much from the time that I came into this body. So I had a remembrance as being a soul, and my journey has been about how to apply that soul wisdom and that understanding into my material life and to help other people to do the same thing, to find meaning on the path, to understand that we're a soul having a human experience. What does this mean? I mentor people. I work with different energy healing modalities, and my business is online as lightradiance.com.au, where I offer many different modalities as well as, I say, my mentoring. And this is an opportunity for me. I like to use my voice. I'm a Taurian, and I talk about healing transmissions. So that's often something that I offer. So it's an energy transmission. And I do find that the vocalization of using my voice and just sharing from the space of my heart is a powerful part of my work. So the title 10,000 Hours and Counting just came to me in reflection and meditation one day. It's a fairly perhaps modern term that we use or people talk about when they're talking about mastering a skill. And they say you need to put in at least 10,000 hours in order to master that skill and then be able to actually apply it and work with it in the world and possibly even make it part of your career, but certainly to be good at it. And I thought about this and I thought, wow, when you're on your spiritual path and you're doing this personally for you, and maybe some of you are also doing that as an offering the way I do as a practitioner as well, there is no limit to the amount of time that you would put in to the dedication of refining your path and the mastery of said path in a way that's not going to be the pinnacle, because you'll be out of the body when you have ticked all the boxes on the lessons that you came here to learn. So in this incarnation, in this body, you will be putting in a lot more than 10,000 hours on your path as a spiritual being. And I wanted to offer this space to share some encouragement, because it's a skill set. You're constantly learning and refining and applying. And because it's not necessarily as measurable as some other skills are, there can be times on the path where perhaps you're questioning, what am I doing? Is this enough? What is this all about? And you need that sort of inner cheerleader. You need to give yourself permission to celebrate the wins and also celebrate, how well you're doing within a challenge. So that is my intention, to use my voice to share things that I have learned on my path and to hopefully spark in you just that connection to say to yourself, once you're on this path, it's a little bit like in the Matrix. Once you take the pill, the blue pill, there's not really much chance to go back, especially the deeper you get in, that you're not going to suddenly give up on your beliefs when the going gets tough, even if you feel you might want to. And that's part of the space to be in, to have those moments where you want to tear your hair out, really. I really like to talk to people about the fact that the spiritual path is not just all sunshine and rainbows and bliss journeys. I mean, really, it is about applying wisdom that you have learned into your life to make your path smoother, to have compassion for yourself and others, and to make the world a better place, ultimately. So it's not light work that we do. It's not a leavening. It's when I say that I'm a light worker, but it's not necessarily something that's easy. It comes naturally as a desire to want to help and to want to be open to other ways, and even questioning societal norms that perhaps you feel don't fit on you. These are all good ways of sort of noticing when you are a person who, feels the connection of your soul more than you ascribe to just your thinking mind. So I also think it's important that I wanted to share, as I said, it's not just about the joy of spirit and connection to spirit. It's about the integration of the life lessons that you have chosen to work with in this incarnation. And also, when you do follow spiritual principles, you pray, you believe in the divine, you believe in loving kindness and compassion. How do you apply them and give them to you, and not just allow them to be concepts or things that you take off the shelf when you're in your spiritual class or you're at your yoga class, or if you're a teacher or a practitioner, that you just take off and you use at some time? How do you marry that with your human self, with your personality self? And how do you rely on the divine when things don't seem to be going the way that you would like them to, or things are very challenging? And if you're able to rely on them in the good times, then why would you not trust in your belief system when things get tough? And that's when you really need to lean into it. So I think it's important that when we are talking about the spiritual journey, we understand that, as I say again, it's not a lifestyle. It's not just a hobby or something beautiful and fun that you pull out. It is the way that you are. It is part of who you are. It is the fabric of your being. And it's important that you have a space where you can, listen to other people and hear about their journey. And it's not so much about me offering you 5 steps to inner peace or enlightenment. It's really about saying it's not a one size fits all journey. So it's lovely to listen to people and to be inspired, but I'm encouraging you to dig deep within you and listen to things that I might say here in my musings. And a few of these episodes will possibly be conversations with some other of my friends and some practitioners who I work with, but just that soul to soul connection of like-minded people who we're all in this together in that way on the spiritual path. And it's really important that you can be inspired, but not feel that you have to apply the wisdom that worked for me or any other one individual, that you can listen and be inspired and then find your own way, craft your own garment, if you like. There's a saying from Paulo Coelho, the amazing author, that the cup of suffering is not the same size for each individual. And this is so true. And we do need to remember, when you look at the world and things that are going on, or you may even read an incredible inspirational story about a person who is overcoming some incredible limitation, physical or otherwise, and you might think to yourself, gosh, what on earth have I been complaining about to myself? You need to take a breath and you need to say, but it's all relative. And to me in this time, and me as this soul, I am deeply challenged by the situation that I am in. And so you don't negate your own experience. You don't compare yourself to someone else. The only good thing about comparing yourself to someone else when we're talking about a challenge or their suffering is to hopefully say to yourself, well, look, other people have these challenges, and if they can do that, then I can certainly apply myself to mine. But not about minimizing you. It's relative to you, but it does give you another perspective, to slightly lighten up a bit and say, well, there is an ability as a human being with that soul connection, because we are all matter and spirit. There is always an ability to overcome a challenge. So it's the same with what I said before, the joy. I want to say it's like there's not one size fits all. The cup of suffering is a different size. Honor your own suffering, but don't get too caught up in your stories. And that's a challenge for us all. And then at the same time, the garment, the robe of joy, the way that we find ways to make our journey enjoyable, the way that we have our time outs and we relax, celebrate our wins. That is not going to be the same way for each person. And you may be quite an introverted person, and your idea of celebration is being outside in nature and being very peaceful and quiet. So I always encourage you, especially in this modern way. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and I've seen huge changes in the way that spirituality is shared and talked about now, with the rise of social media. When I first started it, it was, had a very different attitude or thought towards it. It wasn't quite seen as the way it can be more mainstream now. And this is an amazing gift for us all, that it is mainstreamed so much. But at the same time, it gives more opportunity for many more voices to be out there. And sometimes that can create confusion. So I always just recommend people that you find what works for you, experiment, listen, read books. And if something doesn't feel like it resonates, or it actually makes you feel a little bit judgy against yourself, or you just can't find the seed or the nugget of that wisdom for you, do keep looking, do keep trying to find what works for you and what makes you know and understand that there is, so much more than just our 5 senses, and how you connect with spirit will be personal. So we always start with our own selves and what works for us, but it's really lovely to connect and to listen to other people, and to often you'll start to, when you join a spiritual group or you find someone with their podcast or their teaching online, you can be stunned and amazed and overjoyed when you suddenly hear them say something and you think that is exactly what I thought about that situation. And that can be uplifting too, to realize, we're not alone and we don't necessarily all think the same, but sometimes we are on that same vibe and it's just that wavelength. It's nice to know that. So this is my intention with this podcast, as I say, to share some of the themes that are coming up for me at this time, as well as the themes that I'm seeing coming up with my clients and sometimes with my friends who are on their path and the spiritual practitioners that I know. I think it's really important that we open this up and that we show that it's really a never ending, as I said at the beginning, it's a never ending journey. And this makes it exciting because we're always learning. There's never a point where you just say, tick, that box is done, and I'll just sit back now and put my feet up and I've done my journey. As I say, that's really more about you'd be probably leaving the body, it's the mastery of that level. But you need to be able to give yourself kudos, for the fact that you are doing something which, even though I've just mentioned it's mainstream in many ways now, there's still many people who would not get this and would not understand when you talk about seeing signs of, say, number plates or recurring numbers on your receipts from the supermarket or things like that, or a particular bird or a feather, these kinds of signs that the universe can give us to encourage us on our path. You could find there'd be many people who just won't pay any attention to that. It will mean zero to them. And that's another part of empowering your path. Again, there needs to be an inward looking at many times, because what you're looking for out there, possibly you won't get a reflection of that from others, but that needn't diminish your own understanding. I remember when I was a child that there was a song from the artist Paul Simon, and it had the lyric, I know what I know, I know what I know, and it said over and over. And that really, would resonate with me as a child. So you do need to build up your own inner wisdom, your own catalog, if you like, of signs, and also the way that you interpret the language of both your soul and the way that you receive messages from source, so from universal intelligence. And this includes the divine masters, the ascended masters like the Buddha. It includes the goddesses like Lady Isis or Tara, the angels, the crystal realms, Gaia herself. So this is also part of your journey to allow yourself to be a barometer, if you like, for truth, for beauty, authenticity, and really sort of spiritual energy is what I would say. Then how do you do that? It is through experimentation and application, and you have soul gifts from other lives. So if you are drawn to a particular type of spirituality, or even a particular, say, stream of consciousness around that, or even crystal healing or some kind of modality, it's more than likely that it's something you've done in another aspect. And so you can often have a remembrance where learning is also important, but there'll be a point where you are integrating the wisdom that's already within. And this is how you differentiate yourself from others on the path. And even with your closest friends who share a lot of your spiritual beliefs, perhaps you'll always come to one point where what your soul says is not how their soul works. And that is the absolute beauty of connection of like-minded others. We also come together because of our differences, and that creates an amazing community to be a part of. So I hope that this is encouraging. And I really just want you to think about, your beliefs, and maybe even at this point, especially if you've been on your spiritual path for a long time, maybe look at how some of those have possibly evolved or changed as you have grown, as you have brought your personality self more into alignment with the soul truth, and you're able to access your higher mind more often than your ego mind comes in to run the show. So we're not trying to cut off the ego mind or denigrate our personality. And honestly, there are times when you do think, is this aspect of my personality? What is this doing? How is this helping me? That's what I like to call, and other teachers will call, the sandpaper for the soul. There are certain challenges that you bring through, you incarnate with, belief systems, relationship issues, anything really, that really affect you and that they help you to temper your soul to grow. Because if you didn't have challenges, what would be the issue here? You're not learning anything. And at the same time, what challenges one person may not challenge you. And that's how you can support another person. But you do need to honor your own challenges and understand there's always a reason for those recurring things. One final thing I will say is talking about challenges. We almost think of them as like it's almost like an onion. So there's layers to it, or it's a spiral. So your own journey is always going to be never linear. There's no such thing on the spiritual path as a linear journey, as I said before, ticking off boxes, climbing the mountain, and that's it. It's always going to be that mystery school that energy comes through where suddenly you feel you're just on a dark path with a lantern lighting literally only one step at a time. Or you feel that you've turned a corner and you've come back into the same part of the labyrinth because you're having a similar either situation or relationship appear, and you know that you've had this happen before, and you're wondering, why on earth would I be faced with this again when I actually thought that I had overcome it and moved along? And then your mind is going to want to get out its little notepad and pen and put on its studious glasses and say, right, so how did we fail this time? And want to give you a review. It's not failure. You will continue for a certain point to bump up against the similar challenges. And every time you come back to it, you can see it in a new way. You might even find that the shock of it happening to you obfuscates for a moment to you the fact that in actual fact, it's happened, but you can see that you've reacted differently. But you, instead of taking that little nugget and saying, hooray, you want to say, why did this happen again? I can't believe this happened again. What is going on? So it's when we have to have the sensitivity to turn our vision within, our inner vision, check in with our intuition, with our heart, which is connected to our soul. But then at the same time, we can't do too much excavation because that is too much of a twisty path. And if you're always looking for where you went wrong, you'll find something. And it's not a forward movement. It's not a way to have loving compassion. That's what we come back to. Whatever you offer to others when you're a spiritual being and you pray and you meditate and you believe in spirit, in source, in God, in the universe, then surely you're going to have compassion for other life and those around you and your clients. You need to turn that compassion on yourself regularly. You really need to be able to treat yourself as you would treat your most beloved person in your life or a client. Really give yourself compassion at all times because life is challenging, and we are in a period now which is unprecedented in so many ways and very important because we are moving through a lot of heavy energy, and there is a lot of beauty coming on the other side of that. But we can't only wait for the beauty to happen. We have to navigate this shifting carpet at this time. And that requires application of your spiritual principles, allowing yourself to be a beacon to creating and allowing the community of light that supports you, whether they are in person with you or teachers or books or articles you find online, building that community of support. And at the end of the day, being your own best friend. It sounds a bit like a cliche, being your own cheerleader, but it's really important that you have your moments. You can have the moments of the dialogue. I like to call it talking directly to the universe, where you're actually making a statement or a claim, or you just want to sort of say that you believe that you're speaking to divine intelligence almost. And it's that between you, your soul, and the divine intelligence, and you're acknowledging the journey. You're acknowledging that there is more going on here than meets the eye, and that you understand that there is a reason for everything that happens or doesn't happen. And there'll be days when you really know that there's a reason, and other days where you think, damn this. There really will be, especially when what's going on in the world is so intense and everyone is getting their buttons pressed in order to grow. Everyone is getting more and more tuned into the frequency of spirit and source, whether they know it or not. And that is where you find the discrepancy and all of the polarity coming up, because the frequency of separation that we've all been living under for so long is, starting to tear and wear, and it's really bringing people into a point of choice of moving towards love or further away from love. And when I say love, it's unconditional source, light, and compassion that exists in all of us. So that's just a bit of an introduction to why I'm doing this, to who I am, and I will be sharing more from my heart, more experience, more of my life wisdom and things, musings as I call them, things that come to me in meditation or in experience and in session with clients, and hope that this can in some way inspire you on your path. So 10,000 hours and counting. It's a journey, it's a skill set, it's never boring, but it really does require you to dig deep at times, and then at other times to be able to lean on the spiritual principles that you maybe espouse to yourself or to others. Lean on them. Even when it might feel like it's not working, you can dig a little bit deeper under that and you'll feel your heart, and your heart will always tell you the truth. And people sometimes say to me, but spiritual guidance can come across as being very supportive and positive all the time. I say yes, because we need that. We need that because the human personality often gets way too heavy, and true spiritual guidance will always come from a neutral and peaceful place, and it may even have a little bit of humor attached from angels, from guidance, from spirit, because they know that we tend to get bogged down in heaviness and the heaviness of human emotion. And that's a story for another day, talking about this planet of emotion that we're all on and the importance of that. But I just wanted to share with you. I'll be loading some more of these episodes, and hopefully this inspires and sparks you in some way to encourage yourself to keep going with your practice and application, your 10,000 hours of counting, of being on the spiritual path, being a soul, having a human experience. So love and light to you for now, and I will be back with some more sharing. Bye for now.